Welcome to episode 8 of the Inside Nutley podcast. I'm your host, Tom Greco, and I'm pleased to be joined by Major League Umpire and, more importantly, Nutley resident Phil Cuzzi. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, Tom. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Before we get to your baseball life, I want to touch on an event very near to your heart, last week's 19th annual Robert Longo Fund Dinner. Can you tell us about the charity and the event?
Yeah, we just had it on Thursday, and it was our 19th annual, and it's very hard to believe that we've been doing this for 19 years. And it started because of my very dear friend, Robert Longo, Belleville guy. We grew up together. We were not cousins, but we had the same first cousins because my mother's brother married his mother's sister. So we grew up together. We were at the same, especially back then, it was barbecues, family picnics, and so we were together at that. And then again, he went to a different grammar school, but we went to the same junior high. We played ball together, and we were just close. And years later, I went into baseball. I went to Glassboro State down in South Jersey, and Robert went to Harvard and played football there as well. But Robert was the kind of a guy where you never knew. Even when I was in the minor leagues, he would just pop in. I could have been in South Carolina somewhere, and all of a sudden there's a knock on the door, and it's him. This was all before cell phones, so my friends and family had my schedule and hotel list, and so he would pop in anytime, anywhere, and I almost came to expect it at some point. And I'll never forget the day when I talked to him on the phone. He said, something's going on with my hand. My hand is numb and it seems to be going up my arm. And I said, well, Rob, you got to get checked. Go get checked. Or maybe we could just stop it right there. And at the time he didn't have insurance. And, longer story short, he eventually went and was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And when he called to tell me that, he said, I've just been given a death sentence. Robert was a smart guy. He read up on it. He knew what was going to happen. He knew he was going to lose his voice. And he knew that ALS will steal all of his muscle movement. And I saw it. I saw how it progressed and how it, how it affected him at first and how it affected him in the end. And it was very sad. So I just, the last time I saw Robert alive, I was with him at his house in Florida with his wife, Deborah, and daughter, Dominique. And his daughter was probably about 9 at that time. And I knew education was important to him. As I said, he was a Harvard grad. I just told him, Rob, you never have to worry about Dominique's education. We will raise enough money to send her wherever she wants to go. And that was my promise. And that's what we did. And Robert, she wound up going to Harvard, following in her father's footsteps.
Wow.
So she's now at Harvard Law, as a matter of fact.
That's
not that we need another lawyer, but that's what we're going to get. We're going to get a good another lawyer. Our mission is threefold. So we raise money for patient care, and that encompasses anything that has to do with the ALS patient or their family. It could be anything from buying a ramp or a wheelchair or a chairlift, or we replace tires on a conversion van. We've paid people's bills, things that were not covered by insurance. We've also given money for scholarships. I send an application into Nutley High School every year, and I've done it with Belleville High as well. And if a student has a parent or a grandparent that they have lost to ALS, we'll give them a scholarship to start off in college, start off somewhere. And the last thing, of course, is research. We last year I gave $50,000 to a pilot program through the National ALS Association. This year we gave away $25,000 to Penn State Hershey for their research program there for ALS. So that's what we do. And you never know the next phone call that's going to come. And it's so gratifying to see that the the community comes together. We had 600 people at Nanina's on Thursday night, and it's just they know it's going to be crowded. They know they're going to have good food. They know it's like a reunion, and we also give them a good show with a mystery guest, and we've had some great ones over the year, and I'm just so thankful because of my job, my position with baseball. I'm able to bring people like Tommy Lasorda, Joe Torre. There are a lot of Italian Yankee fans, so we've had Bucky Dent and Goose Gossage, and it's just so gratifying to be able to bring that to the community, and in turn, what they give to us.
It must be very. It's amazing. It's the hottest ticket in town, or in two towns, I should say. That's for sure. And that's I'm sure all due to your work and your dedication.
Well, it's like I say, and I said this the other night. It's people say, Phil, it's what a great job you do. It's a lot of work, but if the community didn't support year after year, and again, this was our 19th year, and if they didn't come together and support us, we couldn't do it. We're only able to do it because the community continues to support us. With us, they see where the money's going. We give checks out every year. Every person in that room knows somebody that we helped, and everybody. I mean, so many people in that room. No,
I was just going to say, unfortunately, ALS touches almost everyone. I lost an uncle to it, and one of my best friends who I've known forever was Jerry Tolvey. I know that you did some work with Jerry last year. Unfortunately, when he got sick, did you get to know Jerry at all? Because like I said, we go back. Oh my God, Jerry and I met in Farm League. Kind of like you, I guess you and Robert Longo. It's
yes. No, I of course I got to know Jerry. I mean, who didn't go to an event somewhere in this area and see Jerry there singing? Whether it was a wedding or some sort of a function. It's emotional to even to think and talk about it, because it's when you see it firsthand, and it sounds like you have. It's a terrible disease. It's a horrific disease.
Well, it's just you should absolutely be commended for all the work that you've done, because it's a wonderful thing, and God bless you for that, for sure.
Well, thank you. I need all the help from God I can get. Believe me.
Yeah. All right, let's go back a little bit. Tell me about you. You grew up in Belleville. Tell me a little bit about that.
Grew up in Belleville, on Perry Street in Belleville, and it was a great town to grow up in. As I enjoy living in Nutley now, but growing up, it was just a good community. So much different back then, as you know. We walked to school every day. Same kids, all the kids from the same neighborhood, would walk, and would walk down to grammar school, and then to the junior high, and then the high school. But it was great, and the friends I made in high school, and the guys I played ball with, are the same guys that I see today. They're the same. Those are my closest friends, the guys I grew up with in high school. And traveling the way I do with my job, I meet and work with people from all other parts of the country, and some of the guys I worked with have been into town, whether it's for the Longo event, or whether it's to go to La Sicilia for lunch or dinner, and they say, what you guys have is unique, and it's unique to us, and we know it, and we appreciate it, and but it's not like that in other parts of the country. Guys I work with, they say, I don't even see anybody that I went to high school with.
Right.
And these are the guys that I'm closest to. So it was I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, the way I grew up. And I love it. I love it.
How much do you miss Jackie's Lemon Ice?
Oh, yeah. It's what is it now? It's a 7-Eleven or something.
Yeah, I think it's a 7-Eleven. Yeah.
Krausers, mate. Yeah. That was a big treat to be. Yeah. Well, when we were growing up, there weren't many places that we went out to eat. Jackie's was a treat. Rutt's Hut, we went to Rutt, and Rutt's Hut's still there, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Did you always play sports? Were you always a big sports fan?
Yeah, always played sports. I grew up on Perry Street. If you're familiar with that, it's a dead end street, but the recreation building and field is there. So we grew up there, and we played stickball there. We played baseball, softball, basketball there, whatever it was. In the summertime, they had the recreation program, and that was our second home. My mother and father put up a pool in the backyard, and my mother got mad because we were never in the pool. We were always playing ball down the corner.
Yeah.
So, and that was it. And whatever the season was, that's what we were playing. And really, that's what got me to college, because I wanted to go there to play baseball. And I did. I started playing, and I hurt my shoulder, and that was the end of that. So I said, okay, I'm here now. What am I going to do? I'm not going to play. So, but yeah, sports was a big part of my life growing up.
All right. So what year did you graduate Belleville High School?
In '73.
Okay. And then you went to, you said Glassboro, right?
Yeah, went to Glassboro. Now it's called Rowan.
Right. Right.
But,
And you played there for a couple of years. That's where you got hurt?
Yeah, I played there for a couple of years, and then my shoulder, I blew out my shoulder, and that was the end of that. But yeah.
Did you go right into teaching then, or did you? Or
Yeah, my first job out of school, I was a teacher. I taught graphic arts in one of the two junior high schools in Union, New Jersey, and that was great. I loved it. It was a good school system. I had a lot of fun. I was right out of college, so I was 21, 22 years old, and if I would have stayed in teaching, I'm not sure that I would have ever gone to a different system. But I just said, I don't know if I want to do this my entire life. I don't want to feel as though I had aspirations to be married, have a family.
Sure.
I said I don't want to always have to have a second job, and so then so I had my tenure there. So I think what's that, 4 years, and
Yeah.
then I said, yeah, I'd like to do something. I'd like to make a little more money. And someone said to me, well, you're a personable guy. Why don't you go into sales? I know a guy, how it goes, right?
yeah.
So I went into sales for I guess it was just about over a year. And I said, I want to make more money, and I did. But I said, I don't know. There has to be something more than closing an order.
What'd you sell?
I sold computer accessories from a company called Rightline out of Worcester, Mass. And it was fine. It was fun. It was the beginning of computers. So the year would have been, I don't know, late '70s, I guess. So we were selling the computers had like computer tape back then.
Right.
So
Right. Like
we were
corporate.
selling the storage cabinets for tape and that kind of stuff, and it was okay. But I said that I want a little more excitement. There has to be something more to it than that. And I was actually at Yankee Stadium one night with the boys, and I don't know how or why. I just started focusing on the umpires rotating and running around the field, and I said, now that would be a good job. And I mean, what kid in America didn't want to grow up and be a baseball player, right? A professional baseball player. I said, well, that train left the station, but I said, what a great job that would be. So I looked into it. One of the guys with me, said, I hear there's an umpire school. He said, I see advertisements in the back of the Sporting News, and I'll send it to you. And that's how it started. I wrote away there was 2 schools at the time. I wrote away, and one guy stuck a brochure in a folder. Another guy stuck his brochure, but with a handwritten note. And I said, okay, if you took the time to write a note, I'm going to go to that school. And that's how it began.
Where was the school? Where was the school?
The school, we're in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, the one I went to was in Daytona Beach.
Okay.
So it was.
Obviously,
Yeah.
you don't become a major league umpire overnight. What's the path from school to the major league?
Well, the school is like 5 weeks, and then the top percentage from the school goes into like an evaluation camp week. And once you get to that point, you're pretty much assured that you're going to go into the lowest minor leagues, and then you're assigned to the lowest minor league. So I was in the New York Penn League, which was like a short A season, and but that was it. But it took me 13 years. Once you're in the system, it was just even the umpire school part of it. You know, I went down there, I packed up my car, I drove down to Florida, and I said, well, I played baseball my whole life. You know, how hard could this be? And once I got there, I realized it had nothing to do with me playing at the rec house in Belleville or even Belleville High School. And, you know, it was completely different. So it took me more than once to go through to the school. And it was only offered once a year. So if you didn't make it the first year, which I did not, you had to wait a full year. But if you had the aspiration to go back, so that's what happened. You know,
So,
I went
so
back.
you spent 13 years in the minors, basically.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, what's that like? Because the real picture that we get from that, or the common guy gets, is from movies, and like something like Bull Durham or whatever. Is it like that? I mean, it's got to be to start from the bottom. It's got to be pretty tough, no?
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, you don't know any better. You know, like you kind of look off in the distance, and you know what your goal is. You know, everybody wants to get to the big leagues, but you don't know any better. And you know, I remember being in the New York Penn League and being in, you know, cities in upstate New York, Watertown, New York, Auburn, New York, and Geneva. You know, like the Finger Lakes area, and it was fun, you know, and we didn't know any better. We didn't know how bad it was, how bad the conditions were, and we knew we weren't making any money, but it didn't matter to it. You know, we were young. You know, I was single, so it wasn't like I had to send money home for a family, which was a help. That was a huge help. You know, there were guys that were married
Right.
and even had a child, and that was very tough because. The day the season ended, they had to start working somewhere to do something.
Right.
So yeah, so it was not an easy road, but it was fun.
Do you remember the day you got the call that you were going to the majors?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tell me about it.
Can't never forget that. That was in '91. My first game was June 4th, 1991. I got a phone call saying that I was in Rochester, New York, in AAA, and I got a phone call from the National League supervisor, and he said, "Well, we had Randy Marsh twisted his ankle, so you're going to go into St. Louis, and you're going to work with Harry Wendelstadt's school. That's the school I went to, but you're going to work with Harry Wendelstadt's crew." And I actually went in on an off day. So like now, when we have an off day, if we're anywhere east, I'll come home on the off day. And so that's what the guys did. So I was in St. Louis by myself, never had been there before, but just saying, yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna work in the big leagues for the first time. And it was you know, so I'll never forget that. You know, of course, you call your parents, and I had two sisters, and my two sisters, like so many, are like night and day, right? So my one sister starts crying when I told her, and my other sister said, "Well, St. Louis, can't you tell them that you want to work in New York so we can come to the game?" So it was, you know, that and that is typified the difference of my two sisters. But it was fun, you know. I mean, it was a dream come true, and there's no feeling about how, you know, walking onto that field with these veteran, you know, these veteran National League umpires, and you know, in the minor leagues you just have blue hat. Sometimes in AAA you might have the letters of whatever, but when I got the NL hat in the mail, and I got the biggest check I ever received, I was more thrilled about the NL on my hat than I was about the check.
Right.
But
What's a typical day in the life of an umpire at the major league level?
yeah, well, first of all, we're in the airport usually every 3 days because the series is generally three games. So oftentimes we're flying in the first day of the series, and depending upon where we're coming from, you know, we're getting in. We try to take an early enough flight that we get in by noon latest, and you know, usually that morning we would have been up at, you know, 5 or 6 o'clock. So, you know, you might take a nap until game time. Most of the time the games are at night. If you're in for a weekend series, you're working like a Friday night, oftentimes a Saturday night. Some cities, you know, it's great when we could work a Saturday day game, and then Sunday, with the exception of the ESPN game, it's a day game, and then out of town. So that's why people say, well, does your wife come in with you? And I say, not really, because it's tough. We might only be in a city for 2 days. You fly in on a Friday and then you're flying out on Sunday. Um, and then, so what do we do during the day? It's, wake up when you wake up and have breakfast and maybe get a little workout in late morning. And then depending what city you're in, may determine what you do, outside of the hotel. But it is a lot of downtime. And, it's not so much like some guys like to sightsee. How many times can you see the arch in St. Louis, but it's, it's a great, you have to like the lifestyle, and it's not for everybody.
So how do you meet a wife with as a major league ump?
Well, I married a girl I went to junior high with.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, little girl, and we were always friends. We had the same circle, and we weren't dating from then, but we were always friendly. And it wasn't until, I believe it was just before our 20th high school reunion, that we really got together. And she's not a sports fan. She had heard what I did, but she didn't really know what it was. And she said, "Yeah, I hear that you do something with that you're on TV sometimes." I said, "Yeah, I'm a baseball umpire." And she said, "Oh, yeah." And then, like a little while later, she said, "So tell me again, what is it that you do?" I said, "This is my kind of girl," because I've been with some partners where after the game they get a phone call from their wife, and I hear at only his end, and I hear him say, "What do you mean I missed that play at second?" So my wife wouldn't know. She doesn't really pay attention to the game, and that's good. That's fine with me.
When did you move to Nutley?
I moved to Nutley, I guess it's been 20 years ago. When we first got married, my wife had a condo in Nutley, and I moved into there. And then we found our house, and it was, I've said this before, that being that I'm away, my neighbors are great, the town is great, the police are great, and my wife feels very safe when I'm not home, and that's comforting. And again, that's something that you can't buy.
What is it? What do you think it is about Nutley that all of our Belleville families end up moving here?
Well, it's a great town. I love the center of town. I love to walk around the town. I'll walk from here, and I'll just take a big loop around and go through the downtown, and it's just you know people everywhere you go. You know people. You can't go to the ShopRite and get out of there like quickly. If you just run into something quick, it's impossible to do. It's the same thing like going around the corner to Petracco's. You think you're going to run in and run out for something quick. Someone's always in there that and you wind up having a conversation, a cup of coffee, and that's it's great. That's what's nice about the town.
Yeah, absolutely. Last month, you received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Nutley Unico. What was that like?
That was very humbling. It was very nice. And at first I thought this, I said, "Gee, a Lifetime Achievement Award." I always thought of someone who got a Lifetime Achievement Award as someone that had to be old and in the twilight of their life. And then I realized, and I said, "I'm old and I'm in the twilight of my life." So but it was a real honor, and I really was humbled by it, and I appreciated it. And we had a fun time that night. It was a nice dinner, and it was unexpected, but it was very nice.
What's the funniest thing anyone has ever said to you on a baseball field?
Well, that's a good question. I was working with Bruce Fremming one year. If anyone remembers Bruce Fremming, he was a big jovial guy and a longtime veteran National League umpire, and he was a bigger man. And it was great to work with him because he was, he just been doing it for so long. There was so much that you could learn from him, and they used to like to tease him. And I remember that it was who was the manager at the time, brings out the lineup card. Italian,
Mazzilli?
Mazzilli, yeah, Lee Mazzilli brings up the lineup card, and he says to Bruce, "Hey, you better take care of this Italian kid." He was referring to me, and he says, otherwise, he says, he might find you in the trunk of a car. And I said, it's going to have to be a pretty big trunk. Bruce just kind of looked, and he just, but there's so many things that I remember. There was an infielder for Houston. Anytime that they change the rule, like a rule, it always comes back on us. There's growing pains for the players, but it always comes back to us because we have to enforce it. So it was a few years ago when they enforced the slide rule at second base, and the game actually ended. The kid played for Houston, and the game ended on a slide violation at second, and there was a runner on third, which would have been the winning run. There were 2 outs. The violation was called at second. The game was over. Houston loses. So here comes this. We're walking off, and we had to walk kind of down the same stairs, just separated by a low wall. And the kid just was livid, and I'm just looking at him, and he says, "What are you looking at?" I said, "No, I'm just looking at you. That's all." And it was, and then the next day I'm working third, so I was working the plate, and he said, "Hey, are we okay now?" I said, "Hey, listen, I don't have a problem. I don't have." He said, "I thought maybe I don't even really know you. I thought maybe you had a fight with your wife or something. Maybe that was the problem." So he said, "Yeah, well, no." So fast forward a couple of weeks go by, and we see Houston again. And first time I see him, I'm working third base again. He's playing third, and he said, "Hey, Phil, everything's going to be okay. I didn't have a fight with my wife today." I said, "Yeah, but I did."
Ah,
So it's fun. It's, bantering like that on the field is fun, and it's,
great story.
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go through a couple subjects now, and just tell me your thoughts on when I mention what do you think of Hall of Fame versus Hall of Good. Do you think it's kind of become a Hall of Good as opposed to a Hall of Fame?
It's just a different day, and the game is changing. They're this year, they are hell bent on speeding up the game. They feel as though to keep the interest, especially of the younger fans. So you're really going to see a big difference this year. Every year we go out to Phoenix for our physicals and our meetings, and everything was about the timing. So you're going to see that the catcher has to be in the box ready to catch at 9 seconds. If he's not ready to catch it when the clock hits 9 seconds, it's automatically a ball, a strike. If the hitter is not ready to, it'll be a ball. If the hitter is not ready to hit in 8 seconds, it's automatically a strike on him. If the pitcher doesn't start his motion when the clock hits 0, it's an automatic strike, a ball. So you can see the rules are new and it's still confusing to me, but it's going to be a big difference, and it's going to be growing pains, and so we're going to see what's going to happen. But to your point, everything has changed. The game has changed. Selection of Hall of Fame is what it is, and the same thing happened in replay. When in replay, we're the guys on both ends of the headset, right? And I've had players say, I think it should be someone neutral who's in the replay booth in New York. And I said, well, do you not think that we could be neutral? Our whole job is about being neutral. I said, so if you go to Chicago, do you want to have a tech who's a Cubs fan, who grew up a Cubs fan, and now he's the one that's going to decide? So, it's always going to be that someone's going to say, but it's
Objective, right? I mean, it's things like this, and again, this is my opinion, and like the changes, like the replay, and the putting the guy on first when you go into extra. I think that has so alienated my generation of baseball fans.
Oh, you're right. If you're a purist of the game, as many of us are, you're not happy with the changes that are going on. And I realize that everything evolves and everything changes, and yet we have to just hope that the changes are for the better. I mean, back in the day, you watch the old clips. Pitcher got the ball, he threw. The hitter didn't get out of the box and fix his gloves, and he just was ready to hit.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see that this year because it's going to be strict, and if it's not enforced, it's going to fall on us. So it's going to be strict, and when they experimented with that in AAA last year, they cut like almost a half hour off the game time. So they're looking for that, and some of the changes, I mean, when replay first came out, we weren't really in favor of it, but when it first started, it was really just for the boundary calls, and it was helpful because, especially with so many of the fan friendly fields today, the stadiums, fans can reach over almost everywhere,
Right.
and it's difficult to see. Did he touch it? Was he on our side of the field? Was he, so that in that regard, replay was helpful. Where it became not as helpful was when a guy hits a double and he's safe by 5 feet, and then all of a sudden you look in the dugout and you see the manager doing this to check it, and then right away he had to hit the ground and bounce off the ground this much for that quick, and slow motion high def picks it up, and that's the downside to replay. And I think that anyone would agree with that, but the horse is out of the barn.
World Series.
Everyone,
World Series.
yeah, everyone strives to get to the World Series. I was fortunate enough to have one in 2017, and it was a thrill of my life, to work the plate in the World Series, and it was just it was, again, dream come true. Not that my job is a dream come true, but then to get to that point, dream come true. And after the first couple of pitches, and you say, okay, it's the same game, here we go. But it was a thrill for sure.
Great. Robo umps.
Robo umps. So the automated strike zone. They experimented with that in AAA, and it's a machine. So there's side effects to every machine. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes a breaking ball, again, you're telling the machine that when you have the square of the strike zone, and any time that any part of that ball goes through any part of that strike zone, we want the machine to register a strike. It sounds simple enough, but what it also means is that when you have a big breaking ball that just nicks the bottom of the strike zone and lands on the ground, that pitch is going to register a strike. So the people, I don't know like what the percentage is of players. I don't know that it's 50-50. I really don't know what it is, but there are guys who think that they're in favor of it, and they're going to have to get used to that. And I don't think anyone is going to, what I think will happen if it comes to that, I'll be retired, but if it comes to that, you're going to have a generation of pitchers that learn how to throw unhittable pitches, whether it's a pitch that sweeps across the outside and just nicks the outside at the bottom or the top, and like it's not a hittable pitch, not a pitch that anyone would swing at, and the machine's going to register the strike because it's just doing what you're telling it to do. So it'd be interesting to see. I know they've experimented with it in AAA, and you can pull up video of strikes that landed on the ground, and there's a little delay in the earpiece of the umpire, and then all of a sudden he calls strike three, and everyone's looking at each other. So it'll be interesting to see, but eventually, who knows what it'll come to? But I know that I will probably be having coffee at Petracco's when that day comes.
Baseball's popularity. I mean, obviously, when you started back, when we were younger, baseball was, if not number 1A after football. Now it's kind of third behind football and basketball. Why do you think that's so?
Well, I think it's because the games are taking too long. I think that think about when we were kids. we would run home after school to see the World Series. And now a kid can't watch the World Series. The games are over after midnight. The average guy, if he has to get up and go to work, it's tough for him to watch the full game of the World Series. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And hopefully with these speed up rules, that's going to help that. But again, you don't see. Like I said, you asked me before, did you grow up playing sports? And we were always out on the street, at the playground, whatever it was, whatever sport was. Now you don't see much of that anymore with the kids, like playing touch football on the street, or and so I think that in addition to the fact that they can't see a World Series game, that there's so much more for a kid today, and it starts with this, right?
Yeah.
And and that's what they do. So
Best baseball movie.
best baseball movie. You know what I really like more than the movie? I mean, you could say Bull Durham and that, but I enjoy those documentaries with what's his name that does that?
Ken Burns, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And just to see the old clips and the old, I enjoy watching those. And even though they play again, I sit and watch them every time. So it's really, I enjoy the old clips. Kind of brings you back to a different time. That's why I like working in Wrigley Field, because when you're there, or even Fenway, you could be back in the 50s. When you're on the field and you look around, you see the stadium, and you say, this could be 1950.
Yeah. Come on, you got to give me one fictional one. If you had to watch one baseball movie other than a documentary, which one's it gonna be?
Let me see. I'd say Field of Dreams.
Ozzie Guillen.
Ozzie Guillen was a guy that he just was unfair, and not just to me, but I probably ejected Ozzie Guillen every time but once that he came out to argue, and he never argued about the play. He just came out and screaming, yelling, cursing, and I threw him out the first inning at Yankee Stadium over a check swing. But like people say, well, you must have hated to work Bobby Cox of the Braves, because he was ejected more than anybody, and that's not true. Bobby Cox was a fair guy. He was an excellent manager, and he got ejected when he wanted to get ejected, and never held a grudge. And I never heard him say anything bad in the paper about an umpire. Whereas Ozzie Guillen, it wasn't the same thing. I remember reading where Ozzie Guillen blasted his own players in the paper, and so it was just he was just one of those guys that he just was going to go, and we accommodated him every time that we had to.
Were you a Yankee fan growing up, or Met fan?
Yeah, I was a Yankee fan, but I didn't hate the Mets. I enjoyed the differences of the two leagues, and that's the other thing that it kind of, I think, maybe watered things down a little bit, was interleague play. When they started, it was a big deal to see the Mets play the Yankees.
Yeah.
And now, opening day, it will be an interleague game for somebody. But but I grew up a Met and Yankee fan.
Do you think it's harder to umpire or officiate, I should say, a baseball game, NBA game, or NFL game?
Well, I've never really officiated either of the other two. I know that we work more games than either of those guys do, and I know guys who umpire in the other leagues, and we always compare notes. And I said this year I had the opportunity to meet Robin DiLorenzo, first year NFL official from Nutley. But I tease. I say, you guys only work once a week. Sometimes we work. Like people say, well, how many games you work in a week? Sometimes we don't have a day off for maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we tease the NBA guys and say, well, you're only running half the court. It's a half-court game for you. But
if you had to pick a Mount Rushmore of all-time baseball players, who would be on it?
Well, because of my connection, I'll say Lou Gehrig. Yeah,
that's one.
when you think about see the old clips, and you know, it's you know, just to think about how he continued to play, and you know, there's kind of a connection between head blows and ALS, and you know, I've seen clips where he got hit at second base and he was knocked out and stayed in the game.
You got three other guys to put on Mount Rushmore. Who other than Gehrig?
Okay, all right. Well, I guess I would say my childhood idol, Mickey Mantle. I guess I would say I'll put Jackie Robinson on there, and yeah, you know, I've taken my and I'll say Casey Stengel.
It's interesting. How many more years, Phil? You be up in?
Well, you know, that's the nice thing about it. I could go right now, but obviously I'm going to work the 23 season, and then I'm going to see how I feel. You know, if I feel as though I can still see the things I'm supposed to see, and you know, and I'm still enjoying it, you know, maybe I'll go another one, but you know, maybe this will be my last one. You know, I'm not in a really position to say right now. I'm going to see how this year goes. There's 2 more years left on our contract. Not that it really matters, but you know, maybe finish out the contract, which was usually we get a 5-year deal. But yeah, well, it's going to see how I just, you know, I just had my knee scoped, and I had like a little tear in my meniscus, so I had my knee scoped in mid-December, and it feels great now. So maybe I could work another 10 years. Who knows?
Phil Cuzzi, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Really appreciate it.
Tom, it was my pleasure. I always enjoy talking about the Robert Longo Fund. You know, people can go to Robert Longo, or I'm sorry, people can go to wefightals.org, and they can make a donation. They can see the pictures, and soon our video will be up from the dinner on Thursday the 26th. As soon as I get that link, I'm gonna post it. But I always enjoy talking about that, and I certainly enjoy talking about my profession.
Great. Thank you so much, Phil.
Thank you, Tom.